There is a specific kind of death that nobody talks about. Not the dramatic kind, not the sudden kind, not the kind that arrives with a diagnosis or an accident or some moment of crisis that forces you to confront what is happening. This death is quieter. It happens in comfort. It happens in routine. It happens in the accumulated weight of days that feel fine. Days that are not bad enough to demand change and not good enough to feel alive. And the terrifying thing about this death is that you can be in the middle of it right now and feel almost nothing, because the feeling has been replaced by something else, something your brain has learned to accept as a substitute for actually being here. Distraction. Entertainment, the next thing to watch, the next thing to scroll through, the next minor stimulation that keeps the deeper question at arm's length for another hour. Søren Kierkegaard saw this coming. Not in our century, not in our world of smartphones and social media and infinite content and algorithmic entertainment. He saw it in the 19th century, in a world that was, by our standards, extraordinarily quiet. And what he described then in language that was precise and uncomfortable and refused to offer easy consolation is more accurate about the world you are living in right now than almost anything written since. This video is about what he saw and why you are going to recognize yourself in it in a way that is going to be difficult to sit with. Before we go further, everything referenced in this video is in the description and pinned comment below. Now stay with me, because this is going to require your full attention and your full honesty. Let me start with a question, and I need you to answer it not with the version you would say out loud, but with the real one, the one that lives in the part of your mind you do not show people. When was the last time you did something that genuinely scared you? Not physically, existentially. When was the last time you made a decision that required you to step into genuine uncertainty, to risk something real, to commit to a direction without knowing whether it was the right one, to stand for something that actually cost you something? Think about it honestly, because for most people, when they actually sit with that question, the answer is not recent. The answer involves a lot of qualified attempts, a lot of almost moments, a lot of intentions that were followed by the comfortable decision to wait for better conditions, to gather more information, to think about it a little longer, to be more prepared next time. And next time keeps not arriving, and the conditions keep not being quite right, and the preparation keeps being almost complete, and the life you were going to start living once things settled down keeps being a future project rather than the present reality. Kierkegaard had a name for this. He did not call it laziness. He did not call it cowardice. He called it despair. And his definition of despair is one of the most uncomfortable and one of the most accurate things ever written about the human condition. Because he did not define despair as feeling sad. He defined it as failing to be yourself, as the gap between who you actually are and who you are allowing yourself to be. And he said that most people live their entire lives in this gap without ever naming it, without ever recognizing that the hollow feeling they carry, the vague dissatisfaction that no achievement quite resolves, the sense that something is missing that they cannot quite identify, is not a mystery. It is the felt experience of not being who they are. Kierkegaard was born in Copenhagen in 1813. He was a strange man by any measure. Physically fragile, intellectually extraordinary, emotionally complicated in ways that he spent his entire life writing about without fully resolving. He fell in love with a woman named Regine Olsen and broke off the engagement in circumstances that he could never fully explain, even to himself. He spent years writing under pseudonyms because he wanted to present different perspectives on the same questions without being reduced to a single position. He argued with the established church of his time in terms that got him essentially thrown out of respectable society. And he died at 42 years old, having published a body of work that was almost entirely ignored during his lifetime, and that has become, in the century and a half since, one of the most influential philosophical contributions in history. He is considered the father of existentialism, not because he founded a school or built a system or created a framework that could be neatly summarized and taught, but because he asked the question that existentialism never stops asking. What does it mean to actually exist? Not to think, not to theorize, not to accumulate information and credentials and achievements. To exist. To be here, fully, as a specific, irreplaceable, choosing individual who is responsible for the shape of their own life. That question sounds simple. It is not. Because most of what passes for living is a way of avoiding it. And The Present Age, which he published in 1846, is his most direct diagnosis of exactly how that avoidance operates, and why the particular age we live in is perhaps the most sophisticated avoidance machine ever constructed. Here is the central argument of The Present Age, and I want to lay it out clearly before we go deeper, because everything else builds on it. Kierkegaard said that there are two kinds of ages in human history: revolutionary ages and reflective ages. A revolutionary age is an age of passion, an age where people believe in things deeply enough to act on them, to sacrifice for them, to commit to a direction even when the outcome is uncertain. An age where the individual is willing to put something real at stake in service of something they genuinely value. And a reflective age, which is what he believed his age was and what our age has become in a far more complete and sophisticated form, is the opposite. A reflective age is an age where everything gets talked about and nothing gets done, where passion gets replaced by analysis, where commitment gets replaced by the endless weighing of options, where the energy that should go into action goes instead into commentary, into observation, into the performance of having considered something carefully without ever reaching the point of actually choosing. He wrote that the present age is essentially a sensible, reflecting age, devoid of passion, flaring up in superficial, short-lived enthusiasm, and prudentially relaxing in indolence. That sentence was written about the Denmark of 1846. Read it again, and tell me it does not describe exactly what you see when you look at the world you are living in right now. Think about what happens in your life when you encounter something that matters, something that requires you to take a position, to make a real choice, to commit your actual self, not just your attention, to a direction. What does the reflective age do with that moment? It produces more content about it. It generates discussion. It creates a space for all perspectives to be heard and weighed and considered. It surrounds the moment of potential action with such a thick layer of reflection that the moment passes before anything is done. And this is not an accident. This is the mechanism. The reflective age does not suppress passion directly. It does not tell you not to care. It offers you something that feels like caring but requires nothing from your actual life: the opinion, the take, the carefully worded position that signals your values without demanding anything of your actual life. You can feel strongly about something, you can discuss it at length, you can signal your commitment to it in every available format, and never once do anything that puts something real at stake. Never once make the specific, costly, irreversible choice that would actually mean something. And the gap between feeling strongly and choosing actually is where your life is being lost. Not dramatically, not all at once, in the daily, practiced, comfortable substitution of reflection for action, of commentary for commitment, of thinking about your life for actually living it. Now, I want to show you something about this that is specific to our moment in history, because Kierkegaard was writing about a world that had newspapers and public opinion and the beginning of what we might call a media environment, a world where for the first time, information circulated fast enough that people could have strong feelings about things happening far away from them, things they had no direct experience of and no real ability to affect. And even in that relatively primitive information environment, he saw the danger clearly. He saw that when everything becomes a subject of discussion, nothing becomes a subject of commitment. That the availability of infinite perspectives on every question does not produce wisdom, it produces paralysis. It produces the sense that all positions are equally valid, and therefore no position requires the full weight of your actual self behind it. That you can hold your views lightly because there is always another view to consider, always another angle you have not fully explored, always a reason to suspend judgment a little longer. Now take that dynamic and multiply it by the internet, by social media, by the 24-hour news cycle, by the algorithm that has learned exactly what emotional register to trigger to keep your attention without ever requiring you to do anything with it, by the endless scroll that delivers an endless sequence of things to feel things about without any of those feelings needing to go anywhere. We have built the most sophisticated reflective age in human history, a machine for generating the sensation of engagement without any of the cost of actual commitment, a system that has learned to deliver everything that passion used to provide, the feeling of connection, the sense of participating in something larger than yourself, the experience of caring deeply without any of the risk that passion used to require. And Kierkegaard would have recognized it, not the technology, the psychology underneath the technology, the human tendency when given the option to choose the simulation of a full life over the actual risks of living one. Here is where it gets personal. And this is the part I need you to stay with rather than deflect, because it is easy to hear what I have just described and apply it to other people, to the culture in general, to the media environment and the political discourse and the attention economy, all of which is accurate. But Kierkegaard was not writing about the culture in general. He was writing about you, about the specific individual who is watching this right now, about the person who has access to more information and more perspective and more content about how to live well than any previous generation in history, and who uses that access, at least in part, as a reason not to choose, as a reason to keep gathering information before committing, as a reason to stay in the reflection phase that feels like preparation, but is actually, it is avoidance, dressed up in the language of thoughtfulness. You know what you want. You have known for longer than you want to admit. You know the thing you are not doing that you should be doing. You know the direction you are not moving in because moving in it would require you to stop moving in the comfortable direction. You know the choice you keep not making because making it would mean closing off other options. And the reflective age gives you an endless supply of reasons to keep not making it. More to consider, more to understand, more angles to explore, more content about the very thing you are avoiding that delivers the sensation of engaging with it without the cost of actually engaging with it. Kierkegaard called this the aesthetic stage of existence, the stage where you consume experience rather than commit to it, where you remain always at the level of the spectator, appreciating, considering, feeling the full emotional register of something without ever putting your actual self on the line for it. And he was precise about why this is so seductive. It is seductive not because it is comfortable, though it is seductive because it feels like wisdom. The person who refuses to commit prematurely, who keeps all options open, who insists on seeing all sides before choosing, feels like they are being thoughtful, mature, sophisticated. They feel superior to the person who acts quickly and therefore risks being wrong. And in the short term, they are right. The person who does not commit cannot fail in the way that the person who commits can fail. They never make the wrong choice because they never fully make any choice. They never look foolish because they never stand for anything specific enough to be criticized. They never lose because they never actually play. But Kierkegaard's point was that this protection comes at the highest possible cost, because the thing you are protecting yourself from is not failure, it is life. the specific, costly, irreplaceable experience of being a self that has chosen something and has to live with that choice, of being someone rather than a position holder, of existing at the level of commitment rather than the level of commentary. And the tragedy, which he articulated with a precision that has never been matched, is that you can live your entire life at the level of the spectator and never notice what you missed, because the spectator's life has its own satisfactions, its own stimulations, its own way of feeling full that makes the emptiness underneath it easy to ignore, until something happens that strips the stimulation away, and you are left alone with the question he thought was the only real question. Who are you when there is nothing left to react to? Now I want to introduce a concept that Kierkegaard used that is one of the most important ideas in the history of philosophy, and that almost no one outside of academic philosophy has ever heard of: the concept of the leap. Kierkegaard believed, and argued at length, that there are certain transitions in human life that cannot be reasoned your way into, that the move from one stage of existence to a deeper one is not the result of having gathered enough information, not the result of having thought about it carefully enough, not the result of having achieved the right level of understanding. It is a leap, a moment of decision that goes beyond what reason can justify, a commitment that is made not because all the evidence points in one direction, but because you have decided, this is who I am going to be. And the leap is terrifying precisely because it is not guaranteed, because you cannot know before you make it whether it is the right one, because making it means closing off other possibilities, because it requires you to stake your actual self on an outcome you cannot control. And the reflective age, our age, has produced a population that is almost constitutionally unable to leap, because the reflective age has convinced us that the leap is irresponsible, that we should gather more information first, that we should be more certain before we commit, that the wise person waits until conditions are better, until they are more ready, until the choice is more obvious. And what Kierkegaard understood, and what the data of human experience confirms again and again, is that the choice never becomes more obvious. The conditions never become ideal. The readiness never arrives by waiting for it. The leap is always taken from uncertainty, always taken before you were fully prepared, always taken in the knowledge that you might be wrong. And the person who cannot tolerate that uncertainty, who needs more information before they can choose, is the person who ends their life having never chosen, having spent the whole of it in the preparation phase, having mistaken the rehearsal for the performance. Let me make this concrete, because philosophy that does not touch the actual texture of your life is just another form of the aesthetic experience, another interesting piece of content about the human condition that you can feel strongly about without it costing you anything. So here is the concrete version of what I am describing. Think about the relationship you are in or not in, the career you are pursuing or avoiding, the creative work you are doing or not doing, the conversation you need to have or have been deferring, the version of your life that you have been meaning to start once conditions are better. In each of these cases, if you are honest, the obstacle is not information. You do not need more information about relationships to decide whether the one you are in is the one you should stay in. You do not need more career information to decide whether the work you are doing is the work that is actually yours. You do not need more creative training to begin making the thing you have been meaning to make. You need to leap. You need to make a choice that cannot be fully justified by the evidence available, that requires you to commit your actual self rather than your attention. And the reflective age has given you an infinite supply of reasons not to, an infinite supply of content about how to make better decisions that paradoxically makes deciding harder, an infinite supply of perspectives that makes committing to any single one of them seem premature. And in the meantime, the days pass, and the life that was going to begin once you are more ready is still waiting, still a future project, still something you are going to get to once you have figured out a few more things. Kierkegaard described 3 stages of existence: the aesthetic, the ethical, and the religious. And I want to spend real time on each of these because they describe not just abstract philosophical positions, but actual modes of being that you can recognize in yourself and in the people around you. The aesthetic stage is the one most people spend most of their lives in. The aesthetic person lives for experience, for sensation, for the next interesting thing. They are attracted to novelty, to beauty, to stimulation. They are witty and engaging and often extremely intelligent. They consume life rather than committing to it. They move from one experience to the next, always seeking the next high, the next interesting conversation, the next project, the next relationship that feels electric. And they avoid at all costs the moment of commitment that would require them to give up other options. Because commitment to the aesthetic person feels like death. It feels like the closing off of possibility, like the end of freedom. And so they stay always at the level of the interesting, always appreciating, always engaged, never actually here. The reflective age is paradise for the aesthetic person, because the reflective age delivers an infinite supply of interesting things to consume without ever requiring the one thing that the aesthetic person cannot provide, their full, committed, irreversible self. Now, the ethical stage is where things get harder. The ethical person has made the leap from aesthetic consumption to actual commitment. They have decided to be someone, to stand for something, to take responsibility for the shape of their own life, rather than reacting to whatever is most interesting in the moment. The ethical person makes promises and keeps them, not because keeping them is always convenient, but because the keeping of promises is what makes them a self, rather than a sequence of reactions. They have internalized the demand that Nietzsche would later make famous: become who you are. And they are trying, genuinely trying. But the ethical stage has its own problem, its own form of despair. The ethical person discovers, if they are honest, that they cannot keep their own standards, that the self they have committed to being keeps falling short of the self they have decided to become, that the gap between who they intend to be and who they actually are does not close through effort alone, that the demand to be a fully realized, fully responsible self is one that no human being can meet entirely through their own resources. And here is where Kierkegaard goes somewhere that most philosophers do not follow him, into the religious stage, which I want to be precise about because it is widely misunderstood. The religious stage for Kierkegaard is not about church attendance or doctrinal belief or any of the external forms of religion. It is about the recognition that the self cannot be grounded in itself, that the demand to be who you are requires a relationship to something beyond what you can achieve through your own effort, that the leap into full selfhood is not a leap you can make through willpower alone. Whether you share his theological conclusions or not, the structure of his argument is important. He is saying that the fullest form of human existence requires a willingness to be in relationship to something larger than your own project, to acknowledge that you are not self-sufficient, that the self is not the highest authority on the self, and that the person who tries to be fully themselves entirely through their own resources will eventually exhaust themselves trying, because the demand is larger than any individual can meet alone. Now here is what I think is the most important practical insight in Kierkegaard's entire body of work, and it is the one that the reflective age most systematically prevents you from accessing. He argued that the self is not something you discover, it is something you choose. This sounds simple. It is not, because the reflective age has sold us a completely different story. The story that if you reflect enough, if you explore enough, if you try enough different things and gather enough experiences and consume enough content about who you are, you will eventually discover your authentic self, find your passion, uncover your true purpose, as if the self is buried somewhere underneath the noise and the right kind of therapeutic or spiritual or intellectual excavation will reveal it. Kierkegaard's position is the opposite of this. The self is not found, it is made through choice, through commitment, through the specific, costly, irreversible decisions you make about who you are going to be and what you are going to stand for and what you are going to give your actual life to. And this means that the endless search for yourself, the constant exploration and experience gathering and identity trying that the reflective age promotes and facilitates and monetizes is not a path to selfhood. It is a substitute for it. It is another form of the aesthetic stage, another way of consuming the question of who you are rather than answering it, another way of staying always at the level of the interesting without ever reaching the level of the committed. You do not find yourself by exploring, you find yourself by choosing. And every day you spend exploring rather than choosing is a day in which the self you are supposed to become is not being built. This is where Kierkegaard's concept of anxiety becomes important, and I want to spend time on this because it is one of the most misunderstood concepts in his work. He wrote an entire book about anxiety called The Concept of Anxiety, and what he argued there is something that runs completely counter to how we typically think about the emotion. We think of anxiety as a problem, as a symptom of something wrong, as something to be managed, reduced, treated, eliminated, and sometimes it is those things. But Kierkegaard argued that there is a specific form of anxiety that is not a problem at all. It is a signal. It is the feeling that accompanies genuine freedom, the dizziness of standing before a real choice, the vertigo of recognizing that you are not determined, that you could go either way, that nothing is forcing your hand, and that you are therefore responsible for what you choose. He called this the dizziness of freedom, and he argued that the person who has never felt this specific kind of anxiety has never stood before a real choice, has never inhabited the full weight of their own freedom, has never been at the moment where the self is actually at stake. And the reflective age, in its attempt to eliminate the discomfort of this anxiety, eliminates the condition that makes real selfhood possible. It replaces genuine choice with the feeling of having chosen without the cost, with the performance of decision-making without the stakes. And in doing so, it produces a population that is technically free in every formal sense and experientially unable to do anything with that freedom except consume more content about what to do with that freedom. I want to talk about something that Kierkegaard noticed about public opinion that is perhaps the most uncomfortable thing in the present age, the way that the reflective age uses the concept of everyone to avoid the responsibility of anyone. In a revolutionary age, he observed, individuals act. They take specific positions, make specific choices, bear specific responsibility for specific outcomes. In a reflective age, everyone talks about what should be done. Everyone has opinions, everyone participates in the discussion, but no one is responsible, because the discussion has become an end in itself rather than a means to action. The opinion has replaced the commitment, the conversation has replaced the choice. And when no one is responsible, nothing changes, because change requires the specific, costly, named decision of a specific individual who is willing to be held accountable for it. And the reflective age, with its endless invitation to everyone to weigh in on everything, systematically dissolves that individual accountability into the anonymous consensus of public opinion, where everyone influences the outcome and no one is responsible for it. Now, apply this to your own life. How much of what you call thinking about your situation is actually a way of distributing the decision across so many considerations and perspectives and possible outcomes that the actual moment of choice is never reached? How much of your reflection is actually a way of creating the feeling of engaging with your life without the risk of being wrong about it? How much of your seeking of advice and perspectives and new information is actually a way of keeping the decision always a little further ahead of you, always just one more thing to understand before you commit? Kierkegaard's answer to this is brutal in its directness. Stop. Choose. Bear the consequences. Be wrong if you are wrong. Adjust. Choose again. But do not mistake the endless preparation for the life itself, because the preparation is not the life. It is the avoidance of it, dressed up in the language of responsibility. Here is something that Kierkegaard understood about our relationship to comfort that I think is the hardest thing in this entire video to sit with. He believed that the greatest danger to the human self is not suffering, it is comfort. Not the comfort of physical ease, though that is part of it, the comfort of never being fully tested, of never being in a situation where the full weight of your own self has to show up, of being surrounded by enough stimulation and distraction and mild satisfaction that the deeper question of who you are and what you are doing with your life never gets loud enough to demand an answer. He observed that in his age, people had enough to keep them occupied, enough small pleasures and social engagements and professional activities that the existential question could be kept at bay indefinitely, and that this keeping at bay was not experienced as avoidance, it was experienced as a full life. And our age has perfected this beyond anything he could have imagined. We have built a world in which the existential question can be perpetually deferred by an infinite supply of things to attend to, things to watch, things to read, things to listen to, things to react to, things to consume. And the thing about this infinite supply is that it is genuinely pleasurable. It is not torture, it is not deprivation. It is a mild, continuous, almost frictionless sequence of satisfactions that keeps the deeper hunger at arm's length, without ever fully feeding it. And the person living inside this system does not typically feel that something is wrong. They feel fine. They feel reasonably satisfied most of the time. They feel that they are living a normal life. And they are. They are living exactly the normal life that the reflective age is designed for them, a life of aesthetic consumption, of reflected engagement, of perpetual almost without a rival. And the tragedy, which Kierkegaard named with an accuracy that is not aged, is that this normal life is a form of despair. Not the despair that announces itself, the despair that hides inside comfort. The despair of the person who has everything they were supposed to want and still feels the hollow thing behind their ribs that no accumulation of experience quite fills. That hollow thing is not a malfunction. That is the self, demanding to be chosen, demanding to be committed to, demanding to be more than a spectator of its own existence. So what does Kierkegaard actually offer? Because a philosophy that only diagnoses without pointing anywhere is just another form of the aesthetic experience, another interesting piece of content about the human condition that you can feel strongly about without it requiring anything of you. He offers something that is deceptively simple and genuinely difficult. He offers the demand to choose, not to choose correctly, not to choose wisely, not to choose after sufficient preparation, to choose. To make the specific, costly, irreversible decision that constitutes a self rather than a position, to leap into the uncertainty of commitment rather than remaining in the comfort of perpetual reflection, to stop treating your life as a subject you were studying and start treating it as something you were responsible for. And he offers the recognition that this choosing, this leaping, this committing is not something you do once and then it is settled. It is something you do every day, every hour, in every moment where the comfortable option presents itself alongside the true one, and you have to decide again which version of yourself you are going to be. The self is not a destination, it is a practice, a daily, repeated, costly choice to be who you have decided to be, rather than who the stimulation of the moment wants you to be. And in the reflective age, where the stimulation of the moment is infinite and perfectly calibrated to your preferences, that daily choice is harder than it has ever been, and more necessary. Now, I want to close with something that I think matters more than anything else I have said in this video, and that is the question of what is actually at stake. Because I have described a philosophical framework and a cultural diagnosis and a psychological mechanism, but underneath all of that is something much simpler and much more urgent: your life. Specifically, the specific, unrepeatable, already in motion life that you are living right now. The one that is being shaped every day by the choices you are making and the choices you are not making. The one that will end at a moment you cannot predict, and that will have been either the life of someone who chose or the life of someone who was always about to choose. Kierkegaard knew he was dying when he wrote some of his most important work. He had the clarity that comes from understanding that time is not infinite, that the preparation phase ends whether you are ready or not, that the leap has to be taken from wherever you currently are, with whatever resources you currently have, in the full knowledge that you might be wrong, and the full acceptance that being wrong is preferable to never having tried. He wrote, "To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself." That is the choice the reflective age makes invisible, not the choice between this option and that option, the choice between being a self and being a spectator, between daring and disappearing, between the specific, costly, unrepeatable experience of your own life and the comfortable, infinite, and ultimately empty experience of watching it from a distance while you prepare to begin. You are not in the lobby. This is the performance, and it is already in progress. And the only question that matters is whether you are going to show up for it. Not eventually, not once you are more ready. Now, as you actually are, with all of your uncertainty and all of your incompleteness and all of the genuine risk that comes with being a person who has decided to actually be here. That is what Kierkegaard was asking for. That is what the reflective age makes so easy to defer. And that is, if you are honest with yourself right now, you already know you have been deferring. The question is not whether you see it. You see it. The question is what you do next. And that, finally, is a question that only you can answer, and only by doing something other than thinking about it.